And I didn't put those two together until I started interviewing people, having these conversations. I was like, oh, this is the same thing, but in a more holistic environment. And I started to see the power of it. And to answer your question, it's like that has kind of evolved as time went on. Like when I started the podcast, I didn't expect like it was going to be like this big thing down the road and it was going to be everything. I just wanted to do it because it felt right at the time.
That was the voice of Lance Essihos. Lance is a best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and transformational coach. As the host of the top-rated podcast, University of Adversity, he motivates hundreds of thousands of listeners to turn their darkest days into their greatest motivators. With over 400 interviews featuring renowned individuals worldwide, Lance captivates audiences with diverse perspectives. As the founder of Mic Up Media, he empowers founders and visionary leaders to grow their businesses, brands, and networks through powerful storytelling and podcast interview bookings. Lance's impactful work has touched the lives of many, guiding them towards personal growth, empowerment, and success. We really enjoyed this conversation with Lance. We went off topic a little bit from the world of podcasting and got pretty deep a couple of times. Definitely had to hold ourselves back from going too deep, and we probably could have talked with Lance for hours. There's a lot of good stuff in here, and I think it's a good resource for any coach who's wanting to learn how to make a successful podcast, as Lance has, over 400 interviews, and has even had people like Grant Cardone on his show, which he actually talks about in this episode as to how he did that. As always, if you know somebody who might get something of value from this show, please pass it along. Enjoy. Okay, so Lance, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing pretty good. Really happy to be doing this. I really like your message.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I kind of like to start things off with like a little icebreaker. And Celine and I love traveling. I don't know if you love traveling, but where is the most beautiful place you've ever traveled?
Oh, the most beautiful.
Put you right on the spot.
Well, I lived in Australia for 5 years.
Okay.
So I got to say that, Bali. I don't know. That's I would say the most interesting place that I've been would have been Israel.
Oh, cool.
I want to go so bad.
Yeah, it's super cool. Mm-hmm. But like the most beautiful, that's tough because it really depends on the beaches. So,
well, interesting is a probably a better question. What did you find interesting about Israel? Well, everything.
Well, I went there for a wedding with one of my ex-girlfriends from a few years ago, and I just had this perception of what it would be like. I was kind of like nervous to go there. There's just a lot of news around it being dangerous and whatever, the perception we have of these places. And then I went there and I was just blown away by just how awesome people are, just how much like vibe there is. And it's like these cafes and restaurants, people are all out on the sidewalks.
That's not what you imagine when you think of Israel, is it?
No, and it was just, there's so much history there too.
Yeah.
And it, it was just like, wow, this place, can't believe just mind blowing how cool it was. So,
oh my God, I bet. Nice.
Yeah. And it's funny about traveling because it seems to be, it's never what you think. You go there and it's a whole other thing,
Yeah, because you can read about it and you can watch stuff or you hear what people say, but yeah, like I know that Celine's from Italy, so she's here in Canada on a visa, and I went to Italy for the first time. I crossed the sea for the first time. I was terrified of flying, like absolutely petrified, and we just did it. Talk about facing adversity. I had like a massive phobia of flying for like 13 years after a really bad flying experience. I used to fly all the time when I was young, and we just conquered that shit. We just like booked a flight and just went, and it wasn't nearly as scary as I thought. Although I kind of feel like I don't even have memories of the actual trip because I feel like I just like kind of zoned out and just did what I needed to do, like one foot in front of the other, and just get there. And I got there, and I knew it was going to change my life, and it did. But man, Italy is the same kind of thing, like cafes and people just kind of walking slow, and it's a really, really amazing place to be. Northern Italy, so
yeah, that's where I'm from.
Different than different than south, according to Celine. We didn't go south, but north is very, very cool.
Just trust me on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Italy is. I was there back in the day. I was back in there. I was there in 2006, and I went to where'd I go? Rome.
Yep.
Then Venice, and then we went down to Naples and to Pompeii.
Nice.
Cool.
Really nice.
Yeah. Really want to go to Naples.
I got so fat from eating so much pizza.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
this pizza. I was like, this pizza is not what I expected, but it was so awesome.
Yeah, it's a different type of dish.
It's just fresh ingredients. It's not like the American style pizza or you get in Canada. It's just like, dough, sauce, and what is it, basil on there? Yeah, it was just, I don't know.
Simple.
Yeah. I miss it.
Yeah, I do too. We're going back pretty soon.
Yeah.
But anyways, podcast stuff. So, the most interesting thing, obviously, like you've got your book, and I checked that out on Amazon, which we'll obviously link below as well. But your whole message is overcoming adversity. Obviously, tough times. There's a range of things that can happen in people's lives that create all kinds of disarray. I know that. Everybody knows that. And there's also a lot of ways that people overcome stuff like that. There's all sorts of messages on how you can come out of that. And so I'm wondering, just before we get into how you've built such a fantastic podcast, and I've been so consistent over there, I want to just know, like, what in your words are you trying to do with your work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to make global impact the best I can with my abilities. One of the things that I think is very important that I talk about and I coach about and I speak about a lot is, finding what that potential is for you, your purpose, and actually understanding what that feeling is when there's something that is greater than what you're doing. And I always knew that, I started out being a hockey player, and then I worked all kinds of jobs, got into like the bar and restaurant industry, did that for years. It was great. I learned a lot from those, but then I always knew that there was something that I was supposed to do that was like deeper and more purposeful. And during that time, I went through a lot of different struggle, a lot of loss, a lot of different shit came up over like anybody does. But I always knew that there was something that I was meant to do. And that's kind of what I've been honing in and like kind of carving out, is getting clearer on what that is long term. And when I started the podcast, it was just something that I felt that I really, really needed to do. I'd been listening to podcasts for years, and it was the best medium for getting information for me. I've been listening to Joe Rogan since 2011. I was listening to podcasts before people even like knew what they were. I'd like explain what they were, and they're like, what is it? What? It's still a weird name, podcast. It's still a weird thing. But like, and then, so I at the time of my life needed inspiration, and that's what I looked for. And I thought, why not provide what worked for me? I love stories of people overcoming things and turning them into amazing achievements or whatever. And when I started University of Adversity, it was just like, I wanted a way to share my story and build my network and connections and all that. And the best way that I knew how was like through inspiration and through sharing my story. And as I started to bring awesome people on, I started to realize that I had a gift for conversations. And that was not, it came overnight, but it was that I built that from working years in the bar industry, like having to have awkward conversations with people that were summon you up thinking that they're better than you. And I'm like, I would make it my mission to like crack them. And like by the end of the night, they'd look at you differently, And I didn't put those two together until I started interviewing people, having these conversations. I was like, oh shit, this is the same thing, but in a more holistic environment. And I started to see the power of it. And to answer your question, it's like, that has kind of evolved as time went on. Like when I started the podcast, I didn't expect like it was going to be like this big thing down the road and it was going to be everything. I just wanted to do it because it felt right at the time. And I guess as I started to do that, there was other opportunities that came out. And I guess for the big picture is like, I want to use my gifts and that I was given to the best of my abilities, for the long answer to your question, and figure out how to like really hone those in the best that I can and hopefully inspire other people to do the same. And I think that's how we change the world, is by people like really listening to that call for themselves, figuring out what that is, and then it gives other people permission when they see you doing something that is true to you, and then it inspires them to want to do it. So that's kind of why I do what I do, is to just make that impact on people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely think that like writing a book and also having a podcast like that is the main way to influence or help as many people as possible. Because if I think about myself, I've read so many books and I've listened to podcasts that truly have changed my life. Like no joke, like completely changed my perspective on different things. So it's really great.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's the new media now. Like this is the thing to be doing. And you can, I mean, I can't imagine the world without it, to be honest now.
Yeah,
definitely.
We like I listen at the gym. I listen whenever my like body is busy but my head is not. That's like the perfect time to be learning something. But yeah, that's funny what you said about hockey, because I know, not like I play or anything, but I have quite a few friends who were hockey players, and for one reason or another they didn't end up being able to do it professionally. And this thing that sort of defined them for their entire lives, that like was so embedded in their families, and like also their relationship with their dad, like is all wrapped up in hockey and all these things, and then suddenly there's no more hockey because there's just no way to do it at the level that they were doing it before, and there's no like system set up. And now those people are I would say where you were. They're just in a bit of an open kind of field without any sense of kind of which way to direct their attention. But I do think it's cool. The reason why you started your podcast was for, sounds like pretty much that you weren't looking to necessarily like generate any revenue from it or become a massive success, but mainly like you felt that there was something that you had in your head that you wanted to say, and the podcast was just a space for you to start talking and kind of experimenting and exploring ideas with people. But as it happens with a lot of people who start doing something for reasons just like that, it sounds like you became hyper successful. And now if I look at you online, it's very impressive. Like your podcast has 400 episodes. You've been going since 2018, 2019.
Yeah, December 2018.
2018, yeah. So for like to get into a bit more like on the ground stuff about podcasting, how have you managed to do episodes consistently for a long time, staying inspired? What happens when you get into a rut? Everybody gets into ruts. Like, it's been 4 years. You must have had a couple times where it was getting a bit stale, and or maybe not. And then if you did, though, how did you reignite the fire? Like, how have you stayed with this with so much passion for so long?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything, man. You go your highs and your lows. Yeah, when I started, I honestly went into this, I didn't give a shit about anything but doing it. I was like, I had no, and look, if I could go back and change things now, I know I would do things, I would be smarter, but I was very naive and I just wanted to do it. I was just like, I don't care about making money from it. I just want to have conversations with people, deep conversations about things I care about. That's it. That's all I cared about. Like, and then I realized, I was like, well, you're really not making the most of this if you really wanted to, you know, people were telling me, and they've been telling me that for years, that I probably haven't totally monetized it to its full capacity. But
interesting.
Particularly in the beginning, you know, and I think for all the new podcasters, things have changed a lot, but still, I think everybody has this idea that you're going to be like Joe Rogan overnight. And if you're not, you think that you suck.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is people won't listen at first.
Mm-hmm.
You have to build that trust. You have to show up consistently over and over and over again, because if you wouldn't believe how many podcasts have started and stopped since I got into it.
Oh my
like,
God,
we know.
People that I have that were like, you know, I would look at them as above me, great guests, and they just stop.
Yep.
Stop. And, or it's like a constant rebrand. It's like a new title all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like, there's been lows where I wonder, does anybody give a shit? You know, does anybody? And then whenever I think that, I'll get like the most amazing review, and I'm like, or somebody will send me a DM and be like, that episode really impacted me. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's not about me. It's about, like, you got to get out of it being about me and about people.
Yeah.
And the reality is, when you're looked at as a leader, you don't get a lot of feedback because people see you as knowing your shit. And I think what I struggled with was like, oh, where's my feedback? I don't get a lot of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of the way it is, you know? And so when I started, I hired a team to help me start it. And back then it was a lot harder to do podcasts than it is now.
Oh, for sure.
And I just said, I don't care what it takes, just get me this thing going. I don't care. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, I was like, wow, this is powerful. So then I started my own company, which was originally a production company. And I wanted to provide kind of like a full done for you service for people where they could just show up and do it, right? Mm-hmm. But there were so many problems with that, and I realized that I was spending so much time doing that, and that really wasn't what I really loved to do, because I was talking on like podcasts about personal development and growth, yet my company was like, you know, I was talking about, you know, the vehicle of podcasts, which I love, but a lot of the day-to-day stuff, it doesn't really light me up. Yeah. And it was tough, and you know, and then we eventually switched. I decided to kind of get into more of podcast booking, because getting people placed on shows, because I had done it with mine. I was good at it. I'd built a great network. People trust me when I send them somebody that they're, you know, and that is where I paid attention. For me, the demand was coming from. People were asking me, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And so, to answer your question, I had a team to help me with my show, right? I had a team. I didn't do it myself. Yeah. So that obviously was an advantage for me. Not everybody has that. So that, but here's what I would say to somebody if they really care about this thing. I would say that it's important to hire whoever you need to do. You guys or whoever that does it, so that you get this thing done, because it's a long-term play. You can't expect, just like a business, if you don't plan on doing it for like 3 to 5 years, I say don't even bother, because
of course, especially
now, there's so many people, and we haven't even tapped into the amount of podcasts that are going to be. But like anything, people have an unrealistic expectation. And then they don't have a plan. They don't have a why. They don't have a content strategy. And then what happens when shit hits the fan, the first thing to go is their podcast. So
of course,
it's important to have somebody that can help you with that stuff, if it's very important, and just to know that it's a long-term thing. It's a long-term, for me, it was the best, not only the best personal development tool I've ever had, but second, the best trust building thing that you can create.
Yeah, that's what we tell people.
Yeah, personal development, right? Because you're learning from your guests all the time. You're also
and every single guest, it's like, when I have a big name, like I use Grant Cardone, for instance. When I had him on my show, like
you had Grant Cardone on your show?
Yeah, I've had him, I've had Dean Graziosi, I've had lots of these guys.
Wow, I did not see that. I scrolled through a bunch of your episodes, but that's
all right.
fantastic.
There's lots, thanks. But
there's a lot of
like,
episodes, yeah.
The reason I say it's personal development is because, like, for me to feel like I'm worthy of a seat at the table with Grant Cardone, I have to elevate my game, right? I have to get out of my head and into that space that's like my heart, where I'm like, I belong here, right?
Yeah.
And I had to, and it's not from a place of fake it till you make it. It's just like understanding my value and understanding that I just got to connect with this guy. Like, the key is the connection, connect quick so you can break that barrier, and then you could see them, they trust you and they want to share things with you. If they don't, it's an awkward conversation. So that's about building rapport quick with somebody. And for me, I got very good at figuring out what that was. Right. And that right there, it's not something somebody taught me or I was prepared for. It was like, okay, you got to level up, because in order to get the real juicy stuff, they got to really want to talk to you. And that takes a level of mental preparation and physical, state change. I got to be on my game. So you do that long enough, over and over and over again.
Yeah, man.
You become a better person. You become stronger. You feel like you belong there. That starts to build the confidence, right? So that's why people don't realize that, like, what they're signing up for. That's the beautiful lesson that you learn, is like, it's going to challenge you, and it's going to it's going to help you elevate your game all around.
Yeah, that's a cool perspective. We don't kind of hear about that a whole lot. I'm curious as to if you wouldn't mind sharing, like, how do you go about getting somebody like Grant Cardone on a podcast?
Wow.
Like, was it a cold DM or?
Well, this was, what year was this? Was 2019. I got him and Elaine on. So him and Jordan Belfort. Do you know Jordan Belfort?
Yeah, totally.
Well, so they had a really awkward podcast interview. Grant went on the Wolf's Den, and it was just brutal. And then I tagged them both on a story, and I did like some funny thing, boxing gloves or something. I was like, I did some sort of thing, and then Grant responded. He laughed or something, and then immediately I took that chance.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I'd love to have it on the podcast. Boom. He's like, let's do it. I was like, fuck, I screenshotted it. And then I found the email, and I just hammered them with the email. And I was like, this is what he said. He said he's coming on. And I just followed up. And then finally I got it. So, and to
awesome.
be honest, when he came on the show, he was like, oh, I didn't even know I had a podcast today. I was like, ah. So, but we had a great conversation, and it was one of my favorites, because he was just cool. He's like, you coming to 10X? Make sure you come to 10X.
That's cool, like, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, this was one of my favorite ones. He said something at the end. So I was like, maybe he says it to everybody, but at the time that was cool to hear. And
it's hard if you feel like he forgot that he even had an interview with you, then it kind of starts it off of maybe feeling a little bit unimportant. And so kind of like overcoming that is what you were talking about. Like you have to know that that your ideas are worthy of anybody at any level. And like, it's cool because I guess podcasting is a way that you can experiment with all of your ideas and hone your words and your tongue and improve all of that. And that's it's maybe not so easy to do that as much anymore, because with all of the like virtual stuff, sometimes like you can go quite a while without having conversations with people, with how much like how many emails and all that kind of stuff you're doing. It's but here's like a good way to like, you know, make sure that you sit down and like have coffee with somebody and keep those conversations going. So
Yeah. It's interesting because podcasting is like that gray area where like even Alex Hormozy said he hired Grant Cardone for like $20,000 an hour, 50,000. Like, you know what I mean? And like, because I was able to have him in a podcast setting, I essentially got a coaching call for free.
for
You know what I'm
free,
saying?
man.
So it's
Yeah.
like, and I've had that with a bunch of them. And
Yeah.
look, it's getting harder now because there's more and more podcasts, but you just have to be thoughtful with your approach. You just have to be persistent and thoughtful. That's all. You got to think outside the box. And
Yeah.
and yeah, like it's just interesting because a lot of times you won't get to have these conversations. Someone's like, "Hey, want to hop on a Zoom?" No,
No, that's what I said. It's like, why?
Yes.
Like, you'd be like, no, like, I'm pretty busy. I don't really want to
100%.
hop on a Zoom.
We've talked to people as well that we wouldn't have talked to otherwise at all. Like,
Yeah. And for the listeners out there, people will ask you, especially when you're getting started. Oh, well, what are your with Dean Graziosi? This is a good tip. It's like they'll ask for your downloads.
Right.
And they'll ask a bunch of stuff. And what I would say is stack everything that you have. And you just don't mention, you don't have to necessarily, you say, oh, we're on an upward growth. Like what I would do is stack everything we did have. We got featured in a couple of things.
Yeah.
We had this many people. Always leverage what you've had. That's why it's important. Be like, because then they're like, okay, cool. Oh, and then, you know, at the time ours was featured in a couple different publications. Okay, cool. And then it's like, well, we're on an upward trajectory. You know, you just leave out, you don't have to like necessarily tell the exact thing. You just leave out unnecessary things to like paint the picture that you're doing well. Because nowadays too, people can really mess with the numbers and like, I have this many downloads. And it's like, no, you probably hired somebody. You can go on Instagram and buy 50,000 followers for $100.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do this, like it's become stupid. Like it's like I don't even like if somebody asks me for that, I'll be like, I'll say straight up. Well, all mine are real, so you know it doesn't really matter because I could easily say the opposite. And it's just I think now it's about looking at the show and like just the integrity. How long has it been around? Like. Dude,
how long has it been around is a big one, man. Like,
oh my God, yes.
I honestly, I mean, maybe this just comes from being like a podcast production, like on the background and stuff, but we know the stats of how many podcasts stop. Like, like the stats are ridiculous. Literally 99% of podcasts don't make it past episode 20. So there's a million podcasts, right? Or 2 million podcasts. Yeah. But 99% of those don't make it past 20 episodes. So that leaves you with about 20,000 episodes or 20,000 active podcasts. So
why do you guys think that is? Why do you think? What's the main reason?
It's exactly what you said. Now, first of all, like when you work with a company like us, so there's obviously a lot of like singular podcast producers who will do the audio for you. But the part that I found at the beginning, I was just doing audio, and then I realized. There's a lot more than just audio that goes into this. We need something to share. Okay, well, now I'm going to make some content. Okay, well, we also need to like post this thing. Well, now we're going to do the uploading and all that. And you start stacking on more and more pieces, and you realize that running a podcast is actually probably the same thing as running a small business. And unless you want to run your business by yourself, I mean, you can go for it, but just like you would want to, you know, outsource work so that you have more space in your mind, especially because most people who are coming into the podcasting industry don't come from audio backgrounds. So hiring a company is not like, it's not cheap, right? So right up front, it's this big investment. And so people say, you know, I'm just going to go do it myself. You start doing it yourself and you realize each episode is going to take you, if you want to do it the way that you want it to sound and the way you want it to look, and you want some content from it as well, and you want to post something on your LinkedIn and all these things, like you're coming up to like, you know, it can be 5, 6, it can be 8 hours per episode. We know lots of people who spend 8 hours per episode. And people also don't see it as integral to their business. They see it as a hobby or a side a side element of their business. And I think in order for a podcast to remain consistent over a long period of time, first of all, if they're doing it for their business, they need to make sure that they're in the right industry to be podcasting. Like, I wouldn't recommend that somebody start spending $2,000 a month on their podcast if they're, like a fisherman supply store or something. You know what I mean? Like, but if you're a realtor,
maybe it works.
Well, you do never know. But yeah, that's true. But if you're like a real estate agent, or you're a coach, or you're some type of entrepreneur or like some type of startup entrepreneur with an interesting story, like you said, like, it's a bigger picture. It's not just your business. It's like it's your, like, to be a bit cliche, like it's your legacy. It's evergreen content, hours of you speaking. It's who you are. And it might be one of the only ways to actually allow your ideas to show themselves in entirety, that I can think of. Because, I mean, you can do talks, people do talks and stuff, and like live talks, and or one-on-one calls or group calls, and even, but none of that stuff has the reach that podcasting has. And also, you don't sometimes get into the real authenticity, like the deepest parts, if you're doing like a live talk or something, because it's a bit more pressure. And podcasting is just that's a long-winded answer of why I think people stop, though. I think, like you said, they're not aligned in all aspects of what they're trying to do with it. Sometimes there's like financial struggles, and like you said, something gets tough, which it always does. Things always get tough. Podcast is the first thing to go.
I think they are not, they first of all don't know why they're doing it. Some people just do it because they think, oh yeah, everybody starts to do it, so I gotta do it as well. They don't really have a why that is strong enough to push through, so that they can push through when it's like not that fun sometimes. So they're just not going to be consistent. Then there's people that just have problems with consistency in general, and whenever they see that it's a little bit harder that they thought in the beginning, they just stop. Or they see maybe the first few episodes, like even the first 10 episodes get only like 10 listens or something like that. They get like super sad about it, and they just stop. They're like, oh yeah, there's no point in this. And people just stop. They don't have a mission. Whereas I think with your story, you can really tell that you're somebody that's really consistent with what you're doing, with whatever you're doing, and you just push through and you go with it, because you've been doing it for 4 years, and I truly don't know where that comes from in people, like what gives people the ability to push through when it's hard. But yeah, a lot of people just can't do it. I mean, they don't. It's not that they can't. They probably
that's
can.
Like your whole life, your whole message.
How do you push through when it's hard? Yeah. It's I'm just stubborn too, and I just won't quit. I will not quit, no matter what.
When did things start actually becoming like when did you start thinking, oh man, like this is doing something for me? At what episode mark, roughly? Like,
things came pretty quick. I started because I was at a real interesting time where I was just getting sent people, and just, I don't know, there was just a time there where I was landing all these big names, and there was also a time where like that was kind of my mission, was to like bring people on the show so that I could become big. But now, honestly, like, I've gotten to the point, I'm not at a point now where I'm like gonna start chasing people to come on the show anymore. Like, I just don't know, not to say like, I'm not saying that from an ego place or anything. I realized like humans are humans, and I don't care the amount of success you've had, there's still a scaring little boy and girl in there. And when you bring them off the pedestal, they're just humans. So for me, I'm like, I don't really care about getting these big names just to show, look what I have now. Like, it's changed. Now I just want like the real story. I really want, obviously having a big following and credibility helps, but like, a lot of those big names that you get say the same shit over and over, and you don't really have like a really good deep conversation. So now it's kind of like it's changed. But when I started, I really wanted all the best and the best and the best and the blue checks and the,
And did you do all that searching yourself and and DMing and all that stuff and booking?
Yeah, like I said, I got very lucky a little bit too, because I was getting sent people. Just people, my brand was strong. We were having people wanted to come on the show. People were asking me, and it's still like that now. And I don't go, it's, to answer your question, when things started to pick up, not a lot of people listened in the beginning, but like I was getting amazing guests.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, this feels really good. Like I didn't really know what was happening.
Yeah. It does feel good to do these podcasts.
Back to your point, like when we were a podcast production company, I think at the time I had about 6 or 7 clients at once. Every single one of them eventually stopped.
Right.
Now, for me, I couldn't explain to them back then how to like the foresight, because look, they're probably doing better in business than I was.
Right.
And they just didn't see it as being like the top of your funnel. Like I say now, it's like you got the free ungated content right at the top of your funnel. It's like, it's essential. It's like you got your social media content, you got your podcast, and then, the next step is like the gated free content, which is the email. Like, people don't understand. I didn't understand the funnel back then and trying to explain to people. But people just, even I had like this guy who was a very successful marketer, makes millions of dollars. He wouldn't even promote his own show.
Yeah.
And it would be like, and then eventually people were quitting during COVID. I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know. But now I feel like I have an understanding a lot more about why it's important. And you guys probably see it all the time, right? Like we were just saying, it's like people don't understand that it is a business investment. And I would say now the best thing is that video content. Like if somebody can have an in-person studio, that is, and now you can create videos. Like I create my own reels in like 2 minutes now from my own videos that I make.
Yep.
And it's like, boom, you can just, and it's high quality. And now with like Riverside and stuff, you can really get good quality stuff out there.
Yeah.
That's huge. And a lot of people also don't realize like the best way to grow your show is to get on other shows that are similar to your audience too, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to be putting in that work. You got to be doing it. Just like you can't expect, like the people that had a lot of success overnight, like the Rogan's a hard worker, man. Like that guy is a savage, and he already had a lot of like people, he was established.
Yeah, he wasn't starting from square one.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, people have, that's what I would recommend too. It's like, I personally wouldn't go and do what I did again. I would work on my business first.
Totally.
And then have
build the connections.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue. Finish that thought.
Sorry. Oh, no. I was just like, what I did was I built the podcast first.
Right.
And then I was like, everything came from that. Yeah. And look, you can do that, but that's a very risky move. I would say build out your business, do all the things, and then go, all right, now I got this podcast as well. So if you want to learn more about me, you don't really trust me, or you want to learn more about my life, go dig into the show and you'll really learn about kind of thing. And then it's like, or my company, because people want to know the face behind a company. You can't just hide behind.
We always say that.
You can't just hide behind this like logo. Now people wanting more transparency, right? People want to know like, who is this dude? Like look at Elon Musk. Look at his personal brand. Like that just goes to show you, man, the power of personal brand. And like, he's getting on shows and all these names, they realize the power of having that for your brand. Like this is a personal brand builder. This is what podcasting is. I've always said that,
Do you think, that every single person who's in the coaching industry should be podcasting?
Yeah. I mean, I think so, because the next thing people want to do is Well, first of all, they're learning from you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're giving free coaching essentially. Like I think it's essential if you're a coach. Like I can't imagine why anybody would not want to have that as an opportunity.
But
to
after they've done their business and figured out what they're trying to do, like you said, you
Yeah,
don't want to put the carriage or the cart before the horse. Like
yeah,
you want to have the why and have the business part established as a coach, I think, and then hop
yeah,
into it as
yeah. Or if you have the money and you're able to
Mhm.
start building that as
Mm-hmm.
like a thing, But for me, like if I was to go back and start, I would go, oh man, okay, I'm gonna make sure that I have some sort of Facebook group or some sort of group to keep
Oh,
people in the beginning to like make sure and getting email addresses, like those two things, like just keep them in a bucket, make
yeah.
sure, and you're like nurturing them and start building community. I did a piss poor job at keeping community
Okay.
together. We threw a summit, university summit was great in 2021, but like all the stuff I've done, I always look back and go, shit, we didn't do the best job at building actual community that I can like see and talk to and interact with.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mhm.
what I'd say is like, if you're, especially for like a personal development kind of thing, or even business, you got to think about the community aspect. That is
Right.
everything. So think of that
Everybody's
from
saying
day
that.
one. Day one
Yeah.
should be, because those people are, if they're listening to your show, that long content, they like you, they trust you,
Mhm.
right? And
For sure.
also YouTube essential too. So those are things like I you just I think there's a really smart way to do it, and there's kind of like a naive way to do it. And I
Right.
probably was naive, but also I would go after aligned companies or sponsors right off the get go. Like, hey,
Sorry,
here's what I'm
you
doing.
would do
Yeah,
it? Oh
yeah,
yeah,
because
okay. Yeah.
I would pitch. What I would do is like, especially if you're maybe an established coach or you got like something and you
Yeah.
say, I'm starting a show, if you can paint a picture of what you're going to do with the show and it's a big
Right.
vision and passion, these companies may want to get behind you even if you don't have any listeners yet. It's
Yeah,
almost,
that's great advice. Yeah.
it's almost better in the beginning,
Mhm.
right? So these are the things that I would definitely consider. But when I was starting, I was like, I don't care about any of this. I just want to interview people. I don't care.
Well, but to me, I think that there's a couple ways it can go. Like you can get so caught up in having things be the right way that it may hinder you from ever even
Oh,
starting.
for
But you kind
sure.
of just said, you know what, like F all that. Let me get on the ground and then learn as I'm running. You know what I mean? Like I like that, man. I think that's not possible for a lot of people because if you are going to work with a company, which might be the right move, you're kind of going to want to have your ducks in a row before you start spending the money. But hopefully the company will work with you to plan like we do intensive like goal setting and learn about the entire business, the person, the passion, everything. But otherwise, like what you did when you just kind of started, and I think that was a good move.
Yeah, no, I appreciated it. It ended up, being open, so many opportunities, so it's such a blessing, such a
I
blessing.
I was wondering, like, so you it says top 50 podcasts, right? I'm wondering, like, where like, first of all, how did you get that, and where's that information?
Sorry, say that. I cut out a little bit there. What was the
That's okay.
questions?
Your top 50 podcasts, how did you get that achievement? Like, where does that
Oh,
come from?
like on Apple.
Yeah, I
So
thought
Oh,
so.
on Apple. Oh, wow.
yeah,
Cool.
there's I can give a little tip for all the listeners out there.
Yeah, do it.
It's what you want to do is it's about subscribers in a period of time, right? You want to get, when you're launching your show, you want to get as many people creating that action at Apple. Like I think too many people spread it out. I just said, look, everybody go to Apple. This is your duty. If you can just go here, go to Apple and
see.
subscribe, leave a review. My understanding, it's what pushes the ranking up is the subscribers. I don't know if the reviews, and the reviews are important just for like credibility. I don't know how much impact they have at pushing you up the charts. The reality is the more buzz you have, the more downloads, the more subscribers, the more action you have when your podcast is launched, you are going to go up the charts, right? That's how it works. And then what you do is you go on Chartable. You guys probably know Chartable, right? You track and then you take the screenshot, and then you're a top podcast. So the shows that we worked with ended up hitting like top 50 right away, because it's not hard if you have a lot of action in the first few days, and you can go up in charts. My show goes up and down. If I say I spoke at an event last week, a couple of weeks ago, and then and then it'll spike. I'll go way up again.
That's
because
cool.
there's action going there. So Apple has a great way of monitoring that. And I love Spotify, but not many of my listeners are on Spotify. It's always been Apple. It's always been Apple. And just because, like, I don't know, I just like how it's always operated. So, if you really want that ranking, I think the top one I hit was top 20. I think I hit like 20 in Canada, top 20 in Canada. Once we were featured in I think there's a publication we were featured in, Entrepreneur or something. It just spiked it.
Sweet.
And that was when I had like some big names. So then, I just took those screenshots, and you want to tell people to just do that. Just go there, and you can do that in a week. You get 25 people or 10 people go and do that. You're going to rank up. You want to make sure you screenshot it. And every time you build that, that's something you can stack as a pitch. You want to, so you want to have that leverage. So you got to ask yourself, people ask me, how do you get these guests? How do I get people? You got to get in their minds. You have to ask yourself, like, why do they give a shit? Like, why do they care? And you got to you got to be thoughtful, and you got to think, like, first of all, you got to be personal about what their show is. Find something that you can connect to, relate to, somebody that you have in common, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you want to show that, here we're top, we're top 50 podcasts on Apple. We got this person, and we're growing, we're consistent, whatever it is. And then, there you go. There's your opportunity. And they'll say, sure, why not?
Yeah. So keep track of your wins.
Yeah. And you want to stack them, right? And same with, and then also keep track of the people that they're leaving messages, like, and then, you can save them for later to, like, help promote your show. Like, somebody DMs you, it was great, or somebody left a review. Keep those things and just, show them out on social media to promote that people actually care about the show.
Right.
Yeah,
all that stuff helps, I even had that where I just start posting testimonials from the show, and then all of a sudden there's a spike because people are, oh, your show must be good. They don't know about it. It's interesting how it works. So that's how you rank up. It's not rocket science. You just, that you just got to have a lot of action in a certain period of time, and that shoots it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Lance, thanks a lot for coming on, man. It's like you said, like, we're a fairly small podcast, and I shot you a DM, and I just think you're the type of person who, like you said, you just don't really care so much about like status and numbers and things like that. And so I didn't have to tell you anything about the show. I just said, hey, we're trying to help people, and you're like, yeah, let's go. So I appreciate that you dedicate your time like that. It's really cool. And I guess maybe one last thing before we ask where people can find you, but so a coach or I mean anybody who is wanting to start a podcast, who's wanting to get into the industry, maybe thinks that it's too late or something like that. What is one piece of advice that you wish that somebody had told you at the start?
Well, I would say that anything that is worth doing, somebody is going to say that it's saturated or there's too many. If you want to become a doctor, there's too many doctors. You want to become an athlete, there's too many athletes. It's just the way it is. And it's like, just get clear on what it is you want. Because no matter what, there's going to be lots of people doing things that are great, like podcasting, but a lot of people are going to quit. So keep that in mind. If you just keep persistent, just like anything, this is nothing new. You just got to believe and keep being persistent and consistent with it. That's it. And you're going to have the naysayers, you're going to have the people. And I think podcasting, if you have the realistic expectations and you're set up and you just realize that it's part of what I'm going to do for the next 3 to 5 years, this is part of the business, then you just go after it. You just focus on, instead of focusing on everybody else around you, focus on how can I be the best at what I'm doing? How can I improve the quality? How can I be a better interview? How can I create great content? Like, use that instead of worrying about what everybody else is doing. Worry about yourself and improving. And then it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It really doesn't. And that's a big lesson that I've learned.
Yeah, that's the self-improvement thing. Like, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who somebody else is today. And
it's ridiculous because it doesn't have any value comparing yourself to other people because nobody's the same. And the way your message is somebody needs to hear it exactly the way you do it. And in order to do that, you need to do that consistently over time. Like anything, there's too many people looking for shortcuts and hacks for everything. Instead of just going back to the old school, just putting in the time and doing the work. And eventually it happens. But people have these expectations of this success overnight bullshit thing. Yeah. And unfortunately, it hurts a lot of people because they think that what they're doing isn't value. It doesn't have value. But really it does. It just hasn't been, you haven't done it long enough to get the results that you're expecting. And you think because the outcome didn't happen as you expected, so you think it's a failure, which isn't true.
Yeah.
It's just you haven't done it long enough. So,
100%.
It's brutal when you think about how many people could have done so many things to change the world and don't even start because they get
but I think that's like it's like the disease of the time right now that everybody thinks that it just goes, you go viral on TikTok, you make, everybody thinks there's like, it goes overnight and it's so quick. And then they get lazy about it because it didn't happen. And they were like, oh yeah, I'm just going to quit then after like 3 days. And I'm like, wow. Like also with dieting, with fitness, everybody thinks it just goes overnight. Like in everything, there's this mentality. Like at the gym, oh, I'm a girl, I can't go to the gym, I'm going to get bulky. Sure, you get bulky overnight, have fun.
Yeah.
It's like this in everything. It's just bad.
Yeah.
That's the mentality
Totally.
like everybody has right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's just, it's a good lesson in general to just, this is a lesson for the whole world in general. I think it's like, less focus on everybody else and use that energy to focus on yourself and the solution, and just know that it's going to take time and things will happen, and you have to, this is what I talk about on the show, is being able to know, like, when you're in the shit, how do you keep going? And that's it. It's like, it's knowing that your vision and your beliefs are all possible. You just have to see past the shit in the current situation that's happening. And the best people, the most successful people in the world, that's the only difference. They were able to see when things were hard that this is just temporary. And if I keep going and eventually I'll get my break, eventually things will happen. Mm-hmm. It may not be as I planned, but it will happen. And that is really the difference between these successful people and they're not. It's the persistence and the resilience of being okay in the shit and embracing it and knowing that this thing that I'm going through is going to be what I'm going to talk about later. That's the reality of it.
Oh, for sure.
You're going through something, great. When you overcome it, this is what you can help somebody with. There you go.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So where do you want people to find you?
I just send everybody to Instagram. Go
Sure.
follow me
Yeah.
on Instagram. It's all there. Podcast. You guys go check out University of Adversity. I'd love if you'd, go and listen. If
Great
you
name,
feel,
by the way.
thank you. And my book is Mastering Adversity, and it's all there. If you guys feel like it, if you're listening, go leave us a review. Also review this podcast. It's great just to hear the impact. And that's it. All this stuff there. If you want to, people can apply, work with me one-on-one. I'm doing kind of like a 90-day mind, body, spirit reset one-on-one coaching. I'm opening up a few spots. So people
Cool.
feel called to, check it out. It's all there. Instagram. I just put it all there, and it's links to the website and stuff also.
Yeah, we'll link you up in the show notes too. Put everything
Yep.
there. So, yeah. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. This was great.